Hi, I'm Kaylee, and today I'm doing the novel cure tag. So this is actually a tag that I created in 2013. That's right, 7 years ago when I first started this channel. I think this was probably like the 10th or 11th video that I made. So I was still very new to the biz and had no idea what I was doing, and it was terrible lighting and really awful camera quality and everything. And now 7 years later, here I am, and we're gonna revisit this same tag. The idea for this tag comes from a book called The Novel Cure by Ella Berthoud and Susan Eldricken. So you list illnesses or faults from A to Z, and then you recommend books that would cure that ailment. You can use my list, which is down below, or you can just make up your own. Now, normally you could pick any book you want that you think would cure this illness, but for this particular video, my second time doing this tag, I'm going to confine my answers to only classics. Thus, it becomes the classic novel cure tag. But if you want to do this tag, you don't have to use classics, you can just do any book you want. The first letter is A, and I chose Loss of Appetite. If you've lost your appetite, I think you should read The Pickwick Papers by Charles Dickens because they are constantly eating. And the descriptions of the food makes me so hungry every time I read this. For B, we have Broke, as in you're poor, you have no money. And if you're poor, it might cheer you up to read Little Women by Louisa May Alcott because, of course, they are poor. The March sisters are poor, and they're still cheerful, and they're still resilient. They are still generous to those who are less fortunate than themselves. C is for Cowardly. If you are cowardly and feeling scared, I think that if you read Lorna Doone by R.D. Blackmore, that would give you some bravery because there's a lot of really brave, courageous heroes in this book. It would definitely inspire you to be more courageous. D is Fear of Death. For this one, I chose Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. There are several characters who die in this book, and the other characters go through a lot of grief and everything. So maybe if you read a book about death and grieving, it wouldn't make you feel quite so scared of it anymore. You would be able to see that sometimes people die and we grieve for them, but it all turns out okay in the end. E is for being too emotional. If you are too emotional, I would recommend that you read Sherlock Holmes books by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle because Sherlock is all about analyzing everything logically. Not that there is no emotion in the Sherlock Holmes books. There is emotion there, but any emotion comes secondary to logic. F is Fatherhood. I don't know why fatherhood is an illness. I'm not sure about that. Maybe it's anxiety over being a good father. If you have anxiety over being a good father, you could read The Children of the New Forest by Frederick Marryat. This is about 4 children who lose their parents, and a kindly old man adopts them and brings them up, and he's such a fatherly figure towards them. It's really inspiring to see how much he cares for them and teaches them and prepares them to be able to take care of themselves. G is for Gullible, which is an illness that I have. If you are really gullible, you could read Cecilia by Fanny Burney. Cecilia is gullible. She trusts the wrong people. They steal her money and take advantage of her generosity, and it is not a good situation, and she learns you just can't trust everybody. H is for Humorless. If you find that you have lost your sense of humor, you could read The Wrong Box by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is an insane comedy where a corpse gets lost. It sounds really morbid, but it's actually really, really hilarious. I is for Insomnia. If you have insomnia, I would recommend a really boring book that will put you to sleep. And unfortunately, the most boring book I could think of is The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. Enough said. It's boring. It's just So slow moving and boring. J is for judgmental. For this one, I recommend Dr. Thorne by Anthony Trollope. There are some secondary characters who are very judgmental, and they get their comeuppance, and it would teach you not to be like them. K is a killjoy. If you are a killjoy, then you should read The Adventures of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn, and Tom Sawyer Abroad. Tom and Huck and Jim and all those guys are just so full of the joy of life. They're just ready for, a crazy adventure, and they're always excited about what is coming just around the bend in the river. L is for lovesick. If you are lovesick, then I would recommend The Odd Women by George Gissing. This is a story about some women who kind of play around with the idea of, do I just want to remain single? Do I really believe in actual true love? Does true love really even exist? And I think if you were lovesick, this would give you at least some things to think about the reality of romance. M is misanthropy. I think that if you are misanthropic, you should read Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens. Mr. Dombey is very misanthropic. He just seems to hate everyone. He's very bitter and cold and hateful. And so reading his character, you could learn from him not to hate everyone. N is nightmares. I actually have a lot of favorite books that if I wake up in the middle of the night from a nightmare, I'll turn to one of these favorite classic stories that are very familiar and comforting. One of those is Jack and Jill by Louisa May Alcott. This is just a very sweet story. It's very wholesome and innocent, and it is sure to comfort you and calm your fears after you've been upset by a nightmare. O is the fear of getting old. For this one, I chose Goodbye, Mr. Chips by James Hilton. This is about a teacher who gradually, through the story, he gets older and older, but all of his students love him so much. It doesn't really matter that he's gotten older because he has inspired so many generations of students, and his legacy is what he leaves behind. P is no sense of purpose. For this, I chose Daniel Deronda by George Eliot. Daniel is a young man who is searching for a sense of purpose. He's searching for a sense of identity in his life. He goes through this journey trying to figure out his heritage and what he wants to do with his life and how can he find meaning in his life, and he finds it. So maybe you could go on a similar journey along with Daniel. Q is querulousness. Querulous. Okay, it's a thing. For this one, I chose The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. There is a character in this book who is very querulous. They're always complaining and they're very critical, and they basically make everybody around them miserable, but then they learn that you catch more flies with honey. For R, I actually chose two that kind of go together, is that you're too romantic and you have a lack of realism. So for this one, I chose Basil by Wilkie Collins. This is about a young man who gets engaged and marries a young lady, and it turns out she was lying about everything, and they take all his money, and he's completely fooled. So if you felt a little too romantic, this would remind you, don't just get swept up in the romance, trust but verify, right? Because Basil's whole problem was that he had a lack of realism. He was not looking at the reality. This girl is lying to you, man. Do not marry her. But he married her and got into all kinds of trouble. S is shyness. If you are shy, then I would read Raffles, the Amateur Cracksman. Raffles is the total opposite of shyness. He is charismatic and charming and outgoing, and he loves to take risks. He's definitely an extrovert. So that might inspire you to come out of your shell a little bit and at least try to take a few risks. T is for toothache. When you have a toothache, you just need something to distract you from the pain. So I would recommend reading The Black Stallion by Walter Farley. It's a fast-paced, action-packed, really interesting novel that'll just throw you into the story and you'll forget all about your toothache. U is for unemployment. I've been there, it's not a fun place to be. So I would recommend Work by Louisa May Alcott. It seems like there's a lot of Alcott on this list. This is about a young lady who is unemployed. She strives to make a life for herself and earn a living, and she goes through several different jobs, and she learns to be independent and resourceful. V is Vanity, so of course I had to choose William Thackeray's Vanity Fair. I mean, it's right there in the title. It's all about a woman who is trying to get a foothold in high society with all the fancy rich people, and she is extremely vain. So you could take a page out of that book and learn what not to do. W is Workaholic. For this one, I chose Mary Barton by Elizabeth Gaskell because the workers go on strike. So if you're a workaholic, then maybe you shouldn't be working so hard. Maybe you should go on strike. No, but seriously, the workers go on strike because they are being overworked. You know, they have long hours for little pay, and they barely have any time to spend with their families or to build a better life for their families, so they go on strike. So if they can go on strike just to get a few vacation hours, you should be using your vacation hours. X is Xenophobia. That's the fear of anything foreign. So I chose Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court by Mark Twain. There would certainly be nothing more foreign to you than to travel back in time to King Arthur's day. And this whole novel is about how this time traveler kind of forges a place for himself in King Arthur's court and adapts to the new time period that he finds himself in. Y is for yawning. So if you are yawning and you need something to keep you awake, then you could read Percival Keene by Frederick Marryat. This one is an exciting high seas adventure with a lot of action and mystery and intrigue. You will definitely not be yawning as you read this one. And Z is zestless. You have lost your zest. And for this one, I have Henry V by William Shakespeare. There are so many good speeches in this play, and Henry V himself is just full of zest and charisma. He gives such rousing speeches, and he's so charming. So if you've lost your zest, then I think you would be inspired by this energetic character. And that is the novel Cure tag. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what would you have answered for these questions. And especially if you decide to do the tag, leave a link down below so I can go and watch your video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.